Welcome to the It's About Time podcast. I'm Reed Davis, Chief Learning Officer at One-on-One Sales Academy. We put theory into practice to help more of those who would benefit from senior living make a confident, even heroic life change. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started. Today, I'm joined by David Smith, founder of One-on-One Sales Academy. David, thank you so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure, Reed.
Hey, this is an honor. Let me first ask you, how did you get into senior living?
Yeah, it was like for everybody else, it was an unintended turn in my career path. I had spent 10 years practicing law here in St. Louis. I had a really decent practice and some great partners. And I found over the last several years that I was practicing that I wasn't really getting a lot of intrinsic joy out of the practice. I found I got into the practice of law to try to help people solve difficult and complicated problems. I get in to try to help bring more justice into the world, and I wound up finding myself mostly fighting over money. And while I was pretty good at it, it wasn't as rewarding as I would have liked. So I had an opportunity to joint venture a project in senior housing with three people who 40 years later today are still my partners. And we made up a senior community that was different in kind from what existed and one that we thought maybe we would like to live in. I was inspired in part by my father, Phil, who was working on a not-for-profit community for older adults on the grounds of the Jewish Community Center where he worked. And he inspired me in terms of what benefits you could bring to people by putting them in a congregate setting, a caring staff and environment where you could help them reach their potential at a later stage in life. And I thought to myself, I wonder if you could do that with people who have a few bucks and are actually willing and able to pay for it. So basically just made up the concept, found a piece of ground, and dove in.
You've created, over the years, your career in senior living spans 4 decades now. And you continue to reinvent yourself and to push the envelope in this industry. And so after you built and filled the Gatesworth, you did sales consulting and took the show on the road, so to speak. After doing that, you founded the CRM Sherpa. What inspired you to do that?
I started with a lot of background and experience at selling residential homes, and I was really good at it. And so I had partners who were developers and helped get the financing, helped set the culture for the retirement community that we built, the Gatesworth. I was going to fill it up, and it turned out a lot harder than I thought because the things that I had learned as a transactional seller didn't work when I was trying to convert older adults into what was a beautiful, magnificent community. I thought if they saw it, that would be enough. But it wasn't. And I learned about emotional resistance, and I finally figured out how to fill it. But in the process, nearly went broke. So I was highly motivated to go. I didn't want to go back to practicing law. So I went around the country and used what I had learned to fill up several dozen communities all over the U.S. and Canada. And in the process, had to recruit people to help me in the various cities where I went. And that required me to articulate, to come up with terminology as well as key performance metrics that would drive a model that I could teach and train from. So I wound up doing that, speaking at national conferences, teaching a course at the Erickson School of Aging, and then at UMBC Erickson School. And as I got into learning and teaching, I realized that one way to impact the industry and help more people learn how to use this system, this process, which worked over and over again in different markets, different care levels, was to embed it in the CRM, the workhorse of the professional salesperson, the leasing counselor, so that they would use it every day as part of their practice. I could help them with that. And so with my partner, Alex Fisher, we developed Sherpa CRM. It was very successful in helping lots of people take the plunge and dive into prospect-centered selling.
So in 2020, in order to again transform your career, you shifted away from the CRM and came back to selling at the Gatesworth to help the team refill after COVID.
I did. First, I wrote a book called It's About Time, after which the podcast is named, and in the process met you somewhere along the way. Yeah, then I went back and helped refill the Gatesworth hands-on in the leasing trenches after COVID decimated what had otherwise been a long historical run of 100% occupancy. And we went from 300 units being 80 units vacant. We hadn't had any vacancy since we originally filled, and was able to help fill those up, and then went through a succession plan to have somebody else take over for doing that.
So as if all those career accolades and accomplishments and really shifting the way an industry looked at sales, as if all of that wasn't enough, you reached out to me.
I did.
And we decided that the industry needed something different.
Yeah, because what I noticed today, much like when I first got started nearly 40 years ago, there's no one place in the industry where people dedicated to better sales conversions, better form for an approach for engaging prospects and helping them through a difficult decision. That doesn't really exist in our industry today. And I wanted to help rebuild what my mentor, one of my mentors, Tony Mullen, taught me and what he had done with his Advanced Sales Summit. And so having watched you learn prospect-centered selling, having watched you go through training 6 or 7 times at least, and become expert at it, having helped you become the senior trainer at Sherpa, I thought that maybe you and I could do something to help reinstate, refresh, grow prospect-centered selling, and have it live a life of its own as something organic and real and practical that could help in the lives of professional salespeople across the industry. My hope is that we can help move the needle on the overall absorption or acceptance rate in the market to where today it's probably around 10%, and see if we can't figure out how to drive that to the 15 to 20% range.
Imagine if we move that needle just 2%, how many seniors that would help.
Yeah. We did a quick exercise recently with Edie Smith of Promatura, and it would take 3 to 4 percentage points in moving the needle to fill every existing vacancy in senior housing across the U.S.
In the grand scheme of things, that doesn't seem like very much, does it?
No, it means only 85% of the people would say no instead of 90%.
I'd take that.
Yeah, me too. And you can do that with a different and a better product. You need a different and better product. You need a strong promotion, lead generation program. But those alone, the age wave alone is not going to resolve the issue. The most efficient way to get there is to have better sales conversions.
In your experience, and I would say even today so much, would you say that we have a marketing problem or a sales problem?
I think we're doing a great job with the product. I think we're doing a great job with our marketing. I think most of the communities that you and I saw and have worked at while we were at Sherpa had way too many leads and not nearly enough selling time.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think it's interesting as you look across the industry that conferences are focused on AI and lead generation, and that if we could just shift a little bit of that focus back to sales, what an incredible impact we could have.
Yeah, I remember being 35 years old when I first built the Gatesworth and thinking to myself, everybody wants to market, nobody wants to sell.
I remember being 35 years old and coming to the Gatesworth for the very first time and hearing you speak about prospect-centered sales and the difference that it can make in prospects' lives. And it inspired me to sell differently and to focus time on sales. And here we are 12 years later, almost to the day, sitting in the Gatesworth, launching One-on-One Sales Academy.
Yeah, it's very cool, isn't it? We've attracted some of the most successful, resourceful salespeople, professionals in our industry to come join us and help draw out what works with prospect-centered selling. How does it work for them? How does it work in their company? What can we do better?
I feel like when Sherpa launched in 2016, that you guys revolutionized the industry. And I'm hoping that by launching One-on-One Sales Academy, we can have the same impact in the coming years that Sherpa did and that One-on-One Consulting did before that, and that prior to that you had with the Gatesworth in this market, and how it became a national icon in the senior living industry as the pinnacle of senior living.
Let's hope for that. But in the meantime, every prospect that we're able to impact, because the selling counselor and the leasing person does a better job, will have infinite value to that prospect and their family, especially if they can help them move before there's a crisis.
Imagine if we could just help each community move in 1 to 2 more people.
Each one that we do help is miraculous. So, Reed, of all the things you've done and you've been involved with in terms of trying to help senior adults and help sales professionals do a better job, where does the podcast and the One-on-One Sales Academy fit into your career path?
What my vision is for the podcast, and really with One-on-One Sales Academy as a whole, is to be able to give a voice to those people in the industry that are truly doing the right thing. I would really like to be able to give a voice to salespeople in the community. I think as an industry, we commonly hear the same voices over and over and over, and rarely do we hear from the people that are actually doing it with their boots on the ground, making the difference in seniors' lives every day at a community level. And with hosting the podcast, what I hope to do is bring on the best of the best salespeople and have them be able to share what they're doing and how they're creating a difference at their own community, in hopes that it in some way makes a little bit of a difference with somebody else that might catch that. And if we can have somebody from Texas be able to share what they're doing and how they're creating change in just their community, that maybe somebody in California or Boston or Canada or the UK might be able to change their approach and help more seniors along the way. We also hope to bring on investors as well as family members. What our ultimate aim is to be able to impact sales at every level of senior living.
And I understand you're new to the world of podcasting. How's it going so far?
Considering this is my very first podcast that I've either been on or hosted, I'd say it's going pretty good so far. Yeah.
I think you're a natural.
Well, I couldn't have asked for a better first guest than you. David, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been an honor to discuss what we have in the future and to be able to share what One-on-One Sales Academy will be able to do for the industry.
Reed, it's all about stuff that you and I share in terms of our beliefs, what we know works, what we know helps older adults and helps the people who are trying to serve older adults. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you hosting the podcast.
Thank you for listening to my discussion with David Smith. Thanks for listening to the It's About Time podcast and for being a Sales Academy member. To find out about our next live learning opportunity, check the newsletter, or you can email me at reed@oneonone.com.